I'm excited to share the third in my series of Posh Pastels technique tutorials with you. And if you think that's easy to say, you could go ahead and try it 5 times fast. But I'm going to go ahead and show you another technique tutorial today for using the Stampin' Pastels from Stampin' Up! Along with the Fabulous Flower Fancy stamp set, which is a 2-step set. And today we are going to be using just the basic gray pad and our pastels. We won't be using the blender pen or the Versamark for this technique. But we are doing Colorburst. And this again is one of the cards that you'll be making if you go ahead and order the Posh Pastels technique tutorial class from my blog. Okay, so for this one, we're going to start off with a piece of Whisper White cardstock, and we're going to be doing the background here. And I'm going to use my Stampin' Pastels along with some little pieces of Stampin' Sponge, and these are great consistency. They're really inexpensive. Stampin' Up! Carries them in a pack of 3 huge sponges for $3.50, so they're a really good deal, especially when you cut them up into little tiny pieces. For the Colorburst technique, I've got a little container here of water using an empty brad container. And what you want to do is you want to get your Stampin' Sponge just a teeny bit wet. If you can wring any water out of it, it's way too wet. So just a little tiny bit wet, and then what I'm going to do is go over here and wipe it across the surface, across the surface of my saffron pastel. And then I'm going to go ahead and swipe this in sort of a starburst pattern out from the center. And where the color starts to get light, go ahead and pick up some more Stampin' Pastel and wipe again. Okay, and we're going to fill in most of this space. There's going to be some white space. But then when you've got your starburst started, then go ahead and go on to the next color. Here I have need just a teeny, there you go, teeny touch of water. And I'm going to use my Regal Rose color here and sponge right behind this to fill in some spots. Now this is a great background technique. It really lends itself to certain stamp sets, definitely the funkier of the stamp sets. And then the last one here, this is already a little wet, so I'm going to use my celery and add a little celery here. I wouldn't use it on necessarily a real elegant looking stamp set because the technique is just a little bit more, I don't know, it's a little bit more exciting than that. Okay. So I got that, and then with the edges of the space here, I'm going to go back and add a little bit more of our saffron and fill in some of that spot. Okay, and you could do this in all kinds of different patterns. You wouldn't have to do it in a starburst like this. You could do it in spots or circles or, you know, whatever makes you happy. But I'm going to work some of that color back in. And then we have a really fun background. Now to dress this up just a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and take our basic gray ink, and if your paper is really wet, then you probably had too much water on your sponge, but if it's really wet you might want to wait a couple minutes before stamping. But I'm going to take this and go ahead and stamp, I think I'm going to make my card go this way, stamp a flower over here, and then I'm going to go ahead and add just a couple of smaller flowers over here. And this softens the look a little bit of the color burst. You see how you're not so focusing quite on the burst anymore, and it actually looks a little bit like tie-dye here, I think. So let's use some little tiny leaves. I absolutely love this floral set. Okay. All right. And then of course we need a greeting, so I'm going to use my Sincere Salutations stamp set, which has a really fabulous assortment of things, and I think I'll use thanks so much. Go ahead and stamp this down here. Okay. And then we are going to go ahead and layer this. But before I do, I'm going to take a piece of the basic gray satin ribbon, which I absolutely love. And I'm going to go ahead and attach that. And when I use the ribbons, I like to just use my snail and stick it right on the back of the ribbon. And go ahead and stick that down. And wrap the ends around the back. Okay. And then this needs to be put on a card. So I'm going to fold my matching cardstock in half here. It's a 6x6 square, so folded in half makes it a 3x6 card, which fits in the small open-ended envelopes. And then I'm going to add some adhesive to this. And that's not bleeding through the cardstock on the back. I'll show you. It's my mistake. I had way too much water on my sponge when I first started, so it made kind of a mess. I really like the Colorburst pattern more with the strokes of the sponge that show. And I'll go ahead and stamp that now. We are not done, because if you watch any of my technique tutorials, you'll know that there's always one more thing. So I have a piece of cardstock here, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp a flower and the, where's my leaf? Coordinating leaf. And this time I'm going to use just a little bit of my Stampin' Pastel and my sponge dauber, and so I'll use that saffron color and just dab right there in the center. I'll burnish a little bit back and forth to give it some a little extra color. And then same for the celery. I'll just sponge daub right over there. Now the sponge dauber is a little bit too big for the size of the leaves, you can see, but that doesn't really matter because I'm going to take my scissors and go ahead and cut this image out. Now once I have this cut out, I'm going to go ahead and add it to our card. This card is really busy with this color burst and sort of the tie-dye look to it, so when I add this white layer right over the top, it really helps to tone down the mood of the card and sort of, I don't know, bring it back under control, I guess. It's like, I don't know, when you're at a Daisy Girl Scout meeting and you put your hand up in the air and all the little girls put their hands up and stop talking, and so that's what this card is doing, or this part of this card is doing. It's just calming down the card for us. So we're going to go ahead and stick that right there on top, and then we have our finished Colorburst card.